All right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore a path to inner peace that's literally thousands of years old, and it involves some of the most extreme things you can possibly imagine. But what's really fascinating, and this is all based on a lecture by Radhanath Swami on the Srimad Bhagavatam, is how the heart of this ancient practice is actually more relevant and accessible for us today than ever before.
So let's just start with something that sounds, well, frankly, impossible. I mean, read that. This is describing someone on a spiritual path. No house, no umbrella, no jacket, just willingly taking on the full force of nature. It's a pretty shocking idea, right? And it immediately makes you ask.
Exactly. It's a totally fair question. Why on earth would this be a choice and not some kind of terrible punishment? To really get our heads around the motivation here, we've got to look at the specific culture this came from. This whole practice was part of a stage of life called Vanaprastha. It literally means retiring to the forest. So imagine this. After you've raised your family, done your job, fulfilled all your duties in the world, you, and sometimes your spouse too, would just voluntarily leave everything behind.
And the rules were intense. We're not just talking about selling your house. We're talking about giving up basic grooming, cooked meals, even a roof over your head. And you would never go back, not to visit family, not to check on the business. It was a complete and total break from your old life.
But here's the mind-blowing part, and Radhanath Swami really drives this home. For the people who did this, who had been focused on their spiritual life all along, this wasn't something to dread. It was something they actually looked forward to. This was their chance, the ultimate opportunity to focus 100% on their spiritual purpose, with zero distractions.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this whole thing. Look, those ancient practices were extreme. As the Swami points out, they're not practical for us today. But the physical stuff, the external actions, they were never the main point. The real transformation was always meant to happen on the inside.
So you have this classic idea of the letter versus the spirit. The letter of the law was all the external stuff, the matted hair, the crazy diet, enduring the weather. But the spirit, that was the real prize. The whole point was to realize, hey, I'm not just this body, and to shift your attachment from temporary stuff to something permanent and spiritual.
In fact, the lecture points out a really subtle but powerful idea. Just giving things up isn't really it. If you renounce something that you actually could have used for a higher purpose, that's called incomplete renunciation. The real goal isn't just to get rid of your possessions, it's to get rid of the selfish desire behind your actions.
Okay, so if living in a forest and eating only what falls from trees isn't the answer for us, then what is? Well, this is where it gets really good. The lecture presents a path that captures the exact same spirit of that ancient practice, but in a way that's actually described as simple and even joyful.
And the contrast is just night and day. The ancient path was incredibly difficult, only for a select few, and you had to completely leave society behind. But the modern path, it's presented as something joyful for absolutely everyone, and you can do it right in the middle of your normal, everyday life.
So what is this simple process? It really just boils down to two main things. The central practice is chanting holy names, like the Hare Krishna mantra. And to support that, there's a foundation of 4 simple lifestyle principles.
And these are the 4 pillars that hold it all up. Just for clarity, in this tradition, illicit sex means sex outside of marriage. The whole idea is that these 4 things tend to really stir up the mind and senses, making it way harder to focus spiritually. So by simplifying your life in these ways, you're basically creating a calm, internal space for that main practice to really work.
But here's the thing, and it's a huge thing. You can't just go through the motions. Mechanically chanting or just following the rules like a robot, that's not going to cut it. There's a specific internal mood, a mindset, that's seen as the actual key that unlocks the whole thing.
And this quote right here, from Lord Chaitanya, is said to be the absolute essence of that mindset. It's about developing real humility, real tolerance, and learning to find happiness by giving respect to others instead of constantly demanding it for ourselves.
You see, this mindset isn't just a nice moral teaching. In this tradition, it's literally the key that allows you to experience the spiritual joy, they call it nectar, that's inside the holy names. Without this humble attitude, the practice can just feel dry, mechanical.
So, let's bring it all home. We started with this image of extreme physical renunciation in a forest, but we've ended up somewhere way deeper. True renunciation isn't about the external show. It's about a complete and total revolution of what's happening on the inside.
The lecture gives the perfect story to illustrate this. There was this King Prataparudra, a super powerful ruler with everything you could want, but he knew that the real goal of life was spiritual. He was totally prepared to give up his kingdom, his power, everything, and become a beggar on the street if that's what it took.
But here's the twist. The great spiritual teachers of the time actually told him not to give up his throne. Why? Because he was already ruling without any selfish attachment. He was using his power, his wealth, his influence, not for himself, but in service to everyone. That was true renunciation in action.
And this brings us to the ultimate takeaway, the one thing to remember from all of this. True renunciation is not about a checklist of what you've given up, it's about what you choose to attach your heart to. So that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about for ourselves. It's not about moving to a forest. It's about looking at our own lives, our jobs, our families, our possessions, and asking, can I engage with all of this fully, but without that selfish, anxious grip? What does genuine detachment actually look like for you right here, right now?